Okay, so the first thing to do with our markup, let's have a look back at our PSD. We've got the element at the top is our header, this little bar at the top here. So let's build that first. So to get started with that, and just remember with indentation, because this is a tag we're inside now, we shouldn't be writing things here, we should be tabbed inside. So I always make sure the body is on the very far left side, and we know how far in. So we'll tab in, and we're going to use, we could use a div tag, we could use a section tag. They're very similar. A section basically is telling the web browser this is actually a section of information. A div doesn't always have as much contextual information to it. It's really just kind of a wrapper and is used for positioning and all that kind of stuff. But don't worry too much about that. You'll kind of pick that up as you go. But basically, we would usually use a div or a section, but we actually have a special tag for this. The browser in HTML5 actually has one called header. So that's really appropriate because this really is the header at the top here. So let's use that. And then I always go underneath, close off the tag, and put some spaces, and basically we're ready to get started. So again, make sure we're always tabbed inside. So what we got inside here, first one we've got inside, again always Command S to make sure you're saved. The first one to do is this logo. So how do we do that? Let's click on here to find out where it is. That's the layer we've got. We really want to export this out as a PNG. So the way you could do that, and if you're using the latest version of Photoshop, you can just right click, go export as PNG. Really, really awesome. It has that, never used to have that. So we go to the desktop, there's our project folder. Instead of putting it in the root there, in that folder, let's, you see a bit easier there. I'm going to make a new folder now. Just call this images. Just makes it easier for housekeeping. And we're going to call this the Kytte logo. I always find it's important to put the company name dash logo as well, not just logo. Also helps their image show up in Google Images and things like that, which is kind of cool. So let's save that, and there it is. Ta-da! So if you don't have the latest version of Photoshop and you don't have this option here, then that's a bit unfortunate. But what you can do instead is you can hold down Alt or Option on the Mac and click that layer, and then it's going to isolate that entire layer. All these other layers are turned off. And what I'd do is I would make sure the layer is selected, select the area there, go copy, create a new file, and just make sure, and it'll bring in automatically the height and width, just make sure the background's transparent, paste it in, and there we go. You see that logo's there, and then you can just go file, file save as for web, which is Command Alt Shift S, and it's the legacy one, but it still works pretty good. Go down here, make sure you go PNG, so it's actually transparent, because if you go JPEG, you just got a block of white, which isn't really bloody useful at all. So save this on as a PNG, and yeah, you just go through the same process, just put it in the images folder. But yeah, that's if you don't have access to the export PNG option. Alright, if you just alt click, they all come back again. Alright, so now I've got that image sitting there, Kytte logo. Let's go back to our HTML. So to start off, how do we put an image in? Pretty simple, we use the image tag. So this image is inside that folder, images, isn't it? So we have to put in the folder name, images, slash, and it was Kytte logo.png. And if you guys remember from the homework, an image tag, you've got an alt tag attribute as well. This basically says, just describes what the image is for people who can't see it if they've got a page reader and things like that. So we'll just put here simply logo, close off the tag, and that's it. Let's go Command S to save, go back to Chrome, refresh it. Whoop, there it is. But we can't actually see it that well because we've got a white background. So let's just put a background of red again just so we can see it. There we go, cool. Alright, so that's worked. Let's have a look. So that's the first one done. And what's the next thing we've got here? We've got a list of links here, which is really a menu, isn't it? And really each link is linked together. So kind of visualize this in terms of the structure. If you were to remove all the CSS, it's really just a bullet list, isn't it? Which is put horizontally. So that's the kind of markup structure we're going to use. But to start off with, we actually have a tag in HTML5 called nav. So we can do a nav tag like that. And you notice what I did there in Atom, you can just type a tag name, for example, like a H1, just go tab, and it'll already fill it in there for you in the middle. So that's kind of a handy thing to do. Cool, so we've got our nav tag, and inside that, a bullet list, as you guys remember, is a UL. So do that, and let's have a look. Do an LI, is the LI item. So we've got home as the first one, us. Let's go there, our work, our clients, blog. Get in touch. Oh goodness, there we go. That'll do. Cool. All right. Let's save that. Head back. Refresh. Cool. This is a good structure. I mean, this is essentially the semantics of what the actual structure is. We've got an image and we've got a list of links, but they're not actually links yet. We've just done them as li items. So you guys remember how to do a link? It's an anchor tag. So we do a href, and we want to link this to the home page, which is a slash. We also have a title attribute. We'll say, hey, return to the home page. Yep. And then we want to end off the a tag. See what I've done there? Every time you open up the tag, we do a tag inside it. You've got to make sure you end off that tag in the right order. So we end the a before we end the li. So you'll see there, I probably should have copied this line and pasted it once I put the a tag in there. So I'm just going to skip ahead now and put this all for the rest of them. Okay, so now you see I've gone through and put on all the links, and you'll see the slash at the start just refers to the root of the folder and the site that you're dealing with. And then I've just linked it to these imaginary files we don't have set up here, but we will towards the end. These files will then be over here. And yeah, just remember to always make sure you close off the tags in the right order. So sometimes you might see that's where you're going to have most of your pain, is just double checking that you got your tags closed off. And a good thing, handy thing with Atom is that you've got color coding. So you start to see there's tags always red, you've got attributes that are always this orange color, and the text inside the quotes is always green. So if you get a situation over here where you've missed a tag like that, or a quote, see how all this color's changed? That's telling you something's wrong. So keep an eye out for that. That's usually the easiest way to spot it. Just undo that, bring it back to how it was. Cool. Alrighty, so if I save that, we'll head over to Chrome and refresh. You'll see, yeah, so all these links are blue now and underlined. So this is letting us know that this is actually a hyperlink. And yeah, you'll see that we haven't told the styles.css anything about links yet. All we've got is a background color red. So putting this underline and making it a blue color, that's all being done by the browser. So that's all just defaults, which is good. It's handy. It lets us know that it's actually working. Okay, so from here, let's have a look what we can do. We've got our links in there, but we don't really have them positioned in the right place or anything like that yet. So, but before we do that, this header, we want to make it this color, don't we? So let's go in and Photoshop, click through there, and we want to get this color value here of the color background. So let's copy that, go back to our thingy here, and we want to do some styling for this, don't we? So this header tag, we actually want to start it off. So we go header, curly brackets, and we're going to go background, and we're going to basically paste in that color we just copied from Photoshop. But always make sure you've got the hash in front of it. And again, this blue dot, we haven't saved it, so let's save. Head back to Chrome, refresh. Excellent, that's looking good. We could probably turn off our background of red now. We don't need that anymore. Excellent. So what you can see is this header tag that we have here, let's just clear up some of that space. This whole header tag here, this is taking up this whole width, because this is a block element. So we haven't told it to go 100% width, it's just done it automatically. So a block element is always going to take up 100% width of its container. In this case, which is the entire page, the entire body. So that's why it's doing that. And this is the behavior that we're familiar with, and once you know how that works, it'll make your life coding CSS a lot easier. But we'll go a little bit more in detail a bit later about display, inline block, and inline. It's really easy to get your head around once you see it in an example. But it's just being familiar with for now that we know that elements would go all the way across. So now we've got that set up. Let's look at our. We want our bullets, for example, our bullet list here. We want them to appear next to each other. So I'm going to go through here, and if I want to attack that, let's have a look. This nav option here, right? This nav tag. I actually want to be more specific with my styling. I want to be able to give this menu some CSS styles, But I don't want to just style it to the nav tag, because I might use that tag somewhere else further down the page. So I need to be more specific, so the styles I now write up are only applied to this tag. So I'm going to give this a class and just call this main menu, like that. Okay, and I'm going to copy that text now, save it, go back to style sheet, and I'm going to make a new selector for this. So I'm going to go to the nav, dot that. Cool. All right. So now I've got that set up. I want to next be able to attack this object here, this UL. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to pop inside there and go UL, and I'm going to go float to the right. I'm going to remove all the padding, all the margin, sorry, and all the padding like that. Save it. Let's go back to Chrome. Let's refresh. Cool. Excellent. So you see now it's floating off to the right, but we've got this issue here where it's kind of gone underneath here, because this element here also, if we inspect, actually just to show you what I did there, anytime you want to bring up the Google Chrome Inspector, you just right click, go inspect, and you'll see this is appearing as a separate window right now, but you can click here and dock it, so it's actually docked within the browser like that. I usually like to have mine separate, so I can move it around and get a good feel for things. So you can see here I can actually hover over and inspect like an X-ray of the whole page. See what's going on? So I can expand that and say, oh, there's my image, cool, and there's my nav. But see my nav right there? It's just kind of floating off, and it says it's over here, but it actually has the UL over there. See what's going on? That's because it's being floated, and floats can be a bit strange like that. But what we're going to do is we are going to basically put a height on this div at the top here, so we don't have this problem. So let's have a look. Go back to the header here. Let's see, from Photoshop, how big is that? That's 51 pixels. Let's just say that's 50 pixels. So I'm going to go height, 50 pixels, and that's all floated. But the reason it's kind of sitting down is because this image is sitting above it over here, and it's not floated. So we need to make sure this is floated as well. Let's go back to our HTML. Let's give this a class. So we can basically give some specific styles to this image. So we're going to call this the logo. Like that. So go back down here, we're going to go image.logo. We're going to say this should be floated to the left. Excellent. Now we go back, refresh. Cool. There we go. It's a bit better. So now that's happened. We've got things going, moving in the right direction. We now need to make sure that these bullet lists are appearing next to each other. So to do that, so this is our select here, which is grabbing the nav tag. It's grabbing the one which has a class of main menu, which is this one here. And then we're also saying, hey, give me that UL tag inside of it. So it's got access to this. We now want to get access to this list items. Okay, so underneath, we're going to say, I'm going to copy that whole line because it's mostly there. At the end, we're going to go space li. And what we could do is here, first thing, let's get rid of that little bullet. So that's the list style attribute. And we're going to say list style none. Save, go back, refresh. Oh, hang on, I spelled it wrong there. There we go. You notice what happened there? You notice how it went like a grey kind of colour? As soon as I got rid of the S, it went a bit lighter. That's, again, the colour coding let me know I made a mistake. Cool, there we go, got rid of our bullets, so we're getting closer. Now, in order for them to appear next to each other, we want these to display inline. And basically what that does is make them appear in line with each other. Refresh, hey, there we go, looking a lot better. Now we want a bit of a gap between them, so we want to make sure the margin on the left is, say, let's say 15 pixels, and then we want the margin on the right about 15 pixels as well. Save, go back, refresh, there we go, a bit better spaced out. But just remember there's actually a shorthand way of doing this. If we just go margin, the first value it's going to assume is the top and bottom values, so we don't want to set any top and bottom margins right now, so set it at 0. And then the second value is both the left and the right, if they're the same value, so we can just go 15 pixels. Let's get rid of those two before, go save, go back, there we go. It's exactly the same. See how that's just a much quicker way of writing it? Instead of writing out margin left, margin right, margin top, it's just much more shorthand way of doing it. Cool, so got that set up. Now the next thing I'm going to do is change these ugly blue link colors. I'm going to make them so we can actually see it. Going by the design, it's come back that these are a white color. So, are they white? Oh, it's pretty bad quality. Let's have a look. They're probably just like a really, really light kind of blue color. So let's say they're that color. So we're going to grab that color here. I'm going to go back to my atom here. So in order for us to now do styling for the A tag here, like you guessed it, we need to get our selector right. Let's just paste in that color there just temporarily for now. So we want to grab this tag, the selector line here, and we're going to go even more specific and say, hey, give me the A tags. On the side there, I'm going to say, hey, set the color to that color, which you grab from Photoshop. Save it, go back, refresh. Hey, there we go. Cool. Looking much better. And I want to get rid of that underline because we don't have that in our design. So let's do that. Let's give this a go. And that is the text decoration attribute. I'm going to say none. Go back here, we're going to refresh. There we go, looking much better. And obviously this is kind of sticking to the top of the page right now, isn't it? So we want to give it a little bit of space. So if we right click and inspect a whole element here, this is where we can do some tweaking in Google Chrome before we actually write our CSS. So you can see here we've got that anchor tag there, and inside we've got the LI. And see that those little orange gaps that appear there and there when I hover over? That's letting me know that's the margin. That's the margin value here. And you can see I can click inside here and change that to say 20. Oops. Like that, if I double over, and you'll see it's got bigger. So it gives you a way to fiddle and tweak things. And this isn't going to save it to the file, this is just doing it live on the page. You know, if I refresh the page now, this will be removed or go back to what it was. But it's just a really helpful way of tweaking things to see how they look in the browser without having to go back and forth all the time. So if I click in here where I've got the cursor now, the 20, I can press up and down on the keyboard. And woo, look at that. So I can really get a sense of what it's going to look like. So just say, you know, what I'm going to set it to say maybe 20 instead, a bit more spacing, you know. So we can then go back here and say, hey, let's change that to 20. Cool. And another thing I'm going to do is, yeah, so it's sticking to the top, so let's get that sorted out. So this UL, we really want to put a bit of padding on the top, or maybe a bit of margin actually. So we've got 0 margin right now, so let's say 10 on the top, none on the right, none on the left, none on the bottom. Excellent. So probably about there, I'd say. Cool. So what I can do now, I can just copy that value, come back to my UL, and that margin is 0. We're going to, oops, paste it in like that, save it, come back, refresh. Cool, perfect. And there we go. So we've got our first setup there. That's our header tag. We've got our image over there with our logo. As you can see, it's looking a bit tight up in the corner there, so let's sort that out. Let's come down to where, here it is, float to the left. Let's just say a margin on the top. Let's guess maybe we've got 4 pixels. We need no margin on the right, no margin on the bottom, but on the left, probably about 15 pixels or so. Let's save that, refresh. Hey, there we go. Cool, go back to Photoshop, have a little look. Always come back to your Photoshop file to make sure you've done that it's actually in line with what the design is set out to be. So cool, that's looking really good. Probably my margin's a little bit too big over there. Once the page starts getting bigger, you'll see it starts becoming a little bit more readable. So yeah, that's the basis of getting your markup set up. And you can see it's really important to make sure you've got the correct tags. And you've closed your tags off, you put your title tags, your title attributes in there, all your images set up correctly, you got your classes and so forth. And you really just do this one chunk at a time. So I've only just started with the header here, and I've gone through and I've started to style it as I go. But it's always important, the very first step is to get all that HTML done properly first, and then you jump in and you start doing styling. So yeah, that's the basics of getting the actual markup done. And in the next lesson we'll go through setting up some custom fonts, and we'll also start building some more of the of the page itself. We're going to extract some more images out of here. We're going to start building this section and this section down here. And that should be enough for you guys to do the rest. Okay, cool. Thanks, guys.